So this video is going to be about calories in versus calories out and how you can use this concept to sustainably lose or gain weight. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I've done a lot of research from people like Lane Norton, 3DMJ, Matt Ogus. There's plenty of channels on YouTube that I recommend because they take a very scientific, research-based approach to training. So whilst these channels are extremely useful, and I definitely recommend that you check them out, if it's the first time that you've ever come across this concept, they can be a little bit tough to grasp. So hopefully this video gives you a consolidated and pretty simple overview of calories in versus calories out as an introduction. This is a model that's going to demonstrate the concept of calories in versus calories out, and a sustainable way to lose weight and eventually bulk, and an unsustainable way to lose weight. So just as far as reading the model goes, so on the x-axis running across you have time, so moving from left to right you're moving forwards in time. On the y-axis you've got calories, so the higher up the scale you go, the higher the caloric value that we're talking about. So if you look at the two lines that I've modeled here, I've got the green line here, which represents calories in, so calories that you're consuming. And as far as the red line goes, we're looking at calories out. So this is energy expenditure through training, exercise, and just your metabolic rate as a whole. So the first example here I've got of someone trying to lose weight and eventually bulk up is someone that's getting trained by what I call a bro coach. So someone not very scientific, not very clued into the idea of calories in versus calories out. Basically someone that is not going to give you the best advice. So people saying have no carbs, don't eat carbs after a certain time, do 3 hours of cardio a day, do only high reps when you're weight training, all these kinds of things. So if any of that sounds like what your coach is telling you, this video is probably relevant for you. Let's have a look at someone that initially tries to lose weight. So if you look at the green line, you can see that there is a rapid reduction in calories in. So this is someone that says, okay, we want to start losing weight, let's take away 90% of your carbs. So you can see that calories drop extremely quickly, but what also happens is you have a metabolic adaptation. So with a really harsh deficit comes a very quick metabolic adaptation. So the red line you can see, calories in, or excuse me, calories out, also reduces extremely quickly. You can't maintain a significant caloric deficit if your calories out reduces very quickly. So to illustrate, the blue lines, if you can see them, represent the size of your caloric deficit. At the initial stage of the cut, huge difference between calories in and calories out. This is someone that's losing weight very quickly. As metabolic adaptation occurs with due to the harsh deficit, you can see that the difference between calories in, calories out, or that deficit, is reduced. Eventually you'll reach this second phase. So someone operating in the second phase of very low calories in, very low calories out, is someone that is eating very little food, probably already doing a huge amount of cardio at this point. And what happens is these people experience a stall in weight loss. So you'll see people that are training very hard, they're eating barely anything, and they're not losing any weight, which can be extremely frustrating, probably confusing. It doesn't make sense in a lot of our minds. What's probably happening to you, if this is you, is that you've essentially run down your metabolism completely. So that's why you'll enter this kind of stage of a plateau. You can't just keep adding cardio. You can't just keep eating less. It's not possible unless you want to do some real damage to your body. So eventually you get stuck. People out of frustration maybe have decided that they don't want to keep trying to lose weight, they can't maintain it. If you have a bro coach like this, they're probably making you eat chicken, broccoli, oats, and basically nothing that tastes any good, so you can't really maintain the diet that you're on. So these people tend to rebound extremely quickly. So they'll say, oh, I want to start gaining weight, so I'm going to start eating a huge amount of food. This is a guy that probably says, oh, I'm going to start bulking now, so they start eating McDonald's, they start eating really calorically dense foods, eating too much. And what happens is calories in, the green line, accelerates. It comes up extremely quickly. What happens with that is you create a huge surplus. Your metabolic rate is only going to recover at a certain speed. So you can see the red line gradually increasing, but the calories in, the green line, has accelerated very fast. So what that basically causes is a huge caloric surplus. The problem with this, even though you may eventually start feeling better and training harder, you can only recover muscle at a given rate. So yes, you're going to start putting muscle on again in this phase. The issue that you have is that you're going to put on a huge amount of body fat. Limited rate at which you can put on muscle. I wouldn't say unlimited rate at which you can gain fat, but you can gain a lot more fat than you can muscle in a given period of time. So that's what you call a bro bulk. People not measuring their intake, they're not controlling the amount of food that they're eating during the bulk. And these are people that typically don't want to track their food. So that's the bro coach method of cutting and bulking. Okay, so this example is someone that's taking a sustainable approach to weight loss and weight gain. So again, you have this initial phase of where someone's eating at maintenance, their calories in and calories out is equal, and that's that initial point you can see on the graph. What happens is when we want to start losing weight, so we need to create a deficit, either through additional cardio or through a change in your diet. So you reduce your calorie intake, and basically what this person is doing is they're doing it much slower. So they're not saying no carbs, they're saying I'm just going to have less carbs, for example. So a deficit is created. You can see that the calories in is less than the calories out, and the blue line represents the deficit. So if you remember the bro coach example, they had a huge deficit to start. In this case, we're just taking a very small deficit, gradual weight loss. What happens in people that take this approach is, while the initial weight loss isn't as rapid as someone that takes the aggressive approach, metabolic adaptation is less severe. So what that means is, as time progresses, you don't need to keep reducing your calorie intake so harshly, and you can maintain a deficit for a longer period of time. So what you'll see in these individuals is they tend to cut for a longer period of time, they maintain deficit for a longer period of time, they feel better because they're eating more. That means that your performance in the gym is better. If you're performing better in the gym, you're exercising harder, you're doing more sets, more reps, you can possibly train a bit harder while you're doing cardio, and you can actually increase your energy expenditure, which again helps create a deficit. Once this person's reached the point where they want to start gaining weight again, or we call it a reverse diet in this case, and a reverse diet's a good term because it refers to people that are going to take a measured, controlled approach to gaining weight. So these are people that will consistently weigh themselves. They will add calories slowly. So for example, maybe 5 grams of carbs a week, 10 grams of carbs a week, but the key is that they're measuring it. It's not a case of I'm just going to eat everything in front of me because I want to bulk up. As you do this slowly, you also find that your metabolic rate adapts. So you start adding food, your metabolism increases, your performance in the gym increases as well, and as a result, your energy expenditure, your calories out, also increases. What happens to people that do this really well is that they can actually increase their food intake, and because of the additional energy expenditure from training, they can actually add food and keep losing weight because their caloric deficit is maintained. So this is what you call a controlled reverse diet, and as you can see, as calorie intake increases, so too does your metabolic rate, your calories out. And it's a longer period of time before you enter a surplus when you're actually gaining weight. What also happens is you can see that unlike the bro coach approach, the size of the surplus is much smaller. So this means that yes, you enter a muscle building phase, but you're not in such an extreme surplus that you put on excess body fat. And that's the sustainable way to cut weight and bulk up.